Wings of Fire, Book 15, The Flames of Hope, released on April 5th. And I'm going to talk about it, because we have some thoughts. Basically, what I'm about to say has spoilers up until Book 14. So, Book 15 takes place, we're all just basically at the beginning of the journey when they're flying off, all those 10 dragons are flying off to Pantala. Book 15, I think, is one of my favorite Wings of Fire books, just to be honest. I think it's a really great conclusion, and if Toei writes no more Wings of Fire books, this would be a great end. You know, if we ended on Book 10 and there'd never be more Wings of Fire books, that would be like, oh, this is a weird ending. This could be an okay ending. I'm not sure what she's going to do, how she's going to continue, but this would be a good ending, I think. This could serve as an ending to the Wings of Fire main series, though it might not. In the story itself, we get some more information about some certain events and certain things that I've been wanting information on for a long time. In this book, I don't think this is very spoiler, we get a bit more information about the Scorching, we get a bit more information about the Breath of Evil itself, obviously, and we get some more about the history of Pantala. I would highly recommend this book to anyone who's like, oh, Book 15, I'll read Book 15 at some point. I would read this. I think this is a really good Wings of Fire book. We have all our 10 dragons going off to Pantala, and Luna has thoughts about dragons. One of the things I love about Luna is how she views all these things as, lots of things as a weaving. It's like, oh, if that was a weaving, if I could make a weaving about this, that's how she sees the world, and I think that's really interesting. And it goes as a through line for Luna's character. And I can't do much without spoiling stuff, because it's kind of like, well, what do I say? It's kind of like spoilery everything else. But the book does some really cool things. We have some really interesting moments, and I'm excited to talk about them. So, spoilers. So, we have them go off, and they're on their own, and blah, 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 blah. Luna is really interesting. We have a few little moments between Luna's meeting Swordtail, those little flashbacks. So I like how we got a bit of Swordtail in the book by getting a bit of Luna's flashbacks and how she met Swordtail and things like that. That was really sweet. I love that. But then as we go along, it's not very long before our little 10 dragon party gets ambushed by Hive Wings, who are, guess what? Possessed by the Breath of Evil. And this weird thing that happens is where we hear Queen Wasp inside them, which sounds really, which you can tell by the in the book where you have the bold letters. But we also have them speaking, also still possessed by the Breath of Evil, but speaking in a different way. And we understand why this happens later in the book. But we already know this kind of basically from the Poison Jungle and things like that, where Queen Wasp isn't really controlling the Breath of Evil. The Breath of Evil, she is a puppet for the Breath of Evil. And we understand why that is later in the story, with some really interesting stuff about who's controlling the Breath of Evil. But they get separated, and I think this is really interesting, because, we have Luna, who's like, oh, I have the really good fighters. I have Tsunami, I have Sundew with me, we can take down the Breath, we got this. I don't have to, shoot fiery silk at everybody, because I don't know if I want to do that. But then they get ambushed, and Sundew and Tsunami, they go, and then I think Tsunami gets captured. I'm not sure exactly who exactly gets captured, but a bunch of their crew gets captured. We're left with Luna, Bullfrog, Sky, Ren, and who was it? Oh, and Cricket, of course. And Luna's like, oh, we've lost all the good fighting dragons, all the useful dragons, and she's kind of she's kind of being like, oh, And a part of her arc is realizing that everyone has things they can accomplish. They don't have to be necessarily really good at fighting. They don't have to be really good at certain things. They can be other things. So after the part of the crew is captured, Cricket, Luna, and the rest of them are left. They get to Pantala, and they find scavengers. They find some scavengers. And they find, I suspect that there were a bunch of scavengers all over the place on Pantala. But they found a crew of scavengers, not the scavengers we see at the end of, in the prologue, but different scavengers, different village. The reason why Ren is here was really good, is because Ren can talk to the humans and things like that, and all that, and it's easier to make those relations. and they find a human called Axolotl. So we meet Axolotl, and basically after that we kind of get a bit of a, oh yeah, I know a village where they worship the breath of evil, which is really interesting. Yes, to come up with a society that worships the breath of evil. That kind of makes sense though, so I like it. And then they leave a clever message for Sundew, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to the breath of evil, blah 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 blah. Then they get to the place where the abyss is. It's near Lake Scorpion, actually, which is cool. And they find the abyss, and they see like the dark abyss and the vines coming, all that. And what happens though is that Dusky. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. They meet a bunch of Silkwings in the cave that they're traveling through, and they got Pokeweed and leaving a few people who have escaped and hidden in the caves. So a Silkwing named Dusky is there, and he's like a little youngster, and he's really sweet. But unfortunately, the breath of evil, or the guardian of the abyss, the human guarding the abyss, kind of takes Dusky, which is unfortunate because Dusky's amazing. And Luna's like, no, and she goes like flying down in the abyss, and she keeps flying, and she realizes that there's a big pit of vines. And then she sees the guardian, the human, holding Dusky, and they're jumping through a tunnel and things like that, with it covered in vines. So she leaps through that too, and she finds herself in like a room full of vines. Like it's infested with vines, the breath of evil, and it's like, she sees a throne with a vine growing through the skull of a human and a dragon, and that's just cool. Okay, so I won't summarize the rest. I won't completely summarize every single plot beat in the story, because that could take forever. But we're going to talk about some interesting things. In this book, we find out what the Scorching was. The Scorching is when the humans started stealing dragon eggs. The humans were a dominant species on the planet, on Pyria, and they were everywhere, and they started stealing dragon eggs to use them as weapons. And I really want a book about the Scorching, because it seems like there's so much more information there, but we'll get to that. And they started stealing dragon eggs to experiment on, and they ended up getting dozens and dozens of dragon eggs and keeping those little dragons in captivity. And eventually, when the dragons decided to take back what was theirs, their eggs, their babies, and they started burning the human villages down. So the humans, led by one of the main researchers, one of the main people who's facilitating this, someone named Cottonmouth, they escape to Pantala in boats, or as Luna sees them, little dishes, little bowls with oars. But they escape and they get to Pantala. And they live on Pantala for a while, but then this guy, Cottonmouth again, discovers the breath of evil. Thinks, I could use this on a dragon. And he brought a dragon egg with him, so he gets a dragon, or absorbs a dragon as they call it. And this dragon, who he called Lizard, and him become the mind of the breath of evil. So what we discover is that the breath of evil isn't intelligent itself. All it wants to do is grow and grow and spread. But it needs a mind, and Cottonmouth and Lizard give it that. Cottonmouth seems to be the main guy in charge. He's the human that does all this stuff, and Lizard is helping. And that's what Luna discovers. But what they can do is, since they don't actually have a body anymore, is they can jump into a mind space, as they call it, where their minds are still alive, controlling the breath of evil. And what they do is they jump into a mind space with Luna so they can see each other as if they were alive. The reason we're able to find out this is because we're seeing Cottonmouth's memories of the Scorching. So this Cottonmouth guy is a real jerk. You could think a Lizard's pretty bad too, but Cottonmouth is pretty cruel. And Lizard, he treats Lizard because he hates dragons, so he's or he thinks dragons are his toys and he controls them and all that. He's pretty narcissistic. And he calls Lizard Lizard and things like that. And Lizard grows up with no mother, no parents, and that's all she's known. So she doesn't think dragons can be, kind and helpful. She thinks dragons are monsters. That's what she's been taught. That's what she's been taught, is that dragons are monsters, evil creatures. Also, Lizard is like a reddish orange dragon. She could be a Skywing, but maybe a different type of dragon. And also, I don't quite know we still don't quite know why the dragons came to Pantala, because the humans came to Pantala. We don't know quite why the dragons came. It might have been the Scorching, it might have been the Scorching was so bad, some of the dragons left too. Who knows? But what happens is that the Breath of Evil, or Cottonmouth, is every time he infects other dragons or humans or whatever, he calls them absorbing creatures, and he can put them into mind space and all that. So what he does is he actually Pineapple the Rainwing, he's able to infect Pineapple while they're in prison, and they escape, but Pineapple's already infected, so Pineapple's being controlled, or his body is being controlled, and Pineapple's like, I don't know what I'm doing, and Pineapple's mind is now actually in the shared mind space they have, and it's like, I don't know, my body's not doing what I ask it to. And a lot of stuff happens. We learn about past events, and also we learn that Lizard wants memories of other dragons, because she doesn't really have her memories, really. She was really young when this happened to her, so she's been here all her life. She's never really been able to leave. This is just editing Caden in here to clarify some things. So, Lizard wants to see the memories of other dragons. So when you give memories to Lizard, it's not like you're giving up your memories. What you're doing is you're sharing them with her so she can always view them for the rest of her life. And you're kind of giving a part of your soul to Lizard. What happens is that we have Lizard start to realize dragons can be nice. They don't all have to be mean and ferocious and mindless things and mindless thugs. They love each other. And Lizard starts to think about that, but she's still not going to do anything yet. And meanwhile, what the Breath of Evil, what Cottonmouth wants is Sundew to come here, to come to the Abyss, so that they can control Sundew and grow the Breath of Evil all over Pantala. And Sundew kind of knows what they want, but Sundew's like, yeah, we're gonna fight the Breath of Evil. And it's like, no. Before this happens, it's kind of two stories are going on at the same time, where we have the crew flying all the way to the Abyss, and we have Luna stuck inside the Abyss, can't get out and escape. And Luna's like, what can I do to stop the Breath of Evil? I don't know how to if I burn it, what happens? Does it release a noxious fume? And what happens is that the mind of the Breath of Evil. So what Lizard eventually, after so many dragons showing her love and compassion, she decides. She tells Luna the way to destroy the Breath of Evil is because, the vines growing through their heads, is to cut off it through their heads, so there's no mind anymore. It can't do anything. Cut that, and we will die, and the Breath of Evil will be vanquished. And Luna, as a fight is going on above with the dragons and some of Cottonmouth's possessed hive wings, Luna starts inching toward. What she does, she closes her eyes, because you're in the mind space. You can't see she can't see the walls of the throne room around her. She's in a mind space right now. So what she does, she's feeling along the wall, using her silkwing antenna and things like that. And then she's trying to find where the throne is, where they're sitting. And what she does, she uses her silk, her ordinary silk, not her flame silk, to cut the vine. She cuts it in the wrong place though, and basically what happens is the Breath of Evil, there's a scream, and the Lizard's like, no, you cut it in the wrong place. The vine will just regrow, and we'll be able to have more. Any new person could just regrow, and it can have a new mind again. And as Lizard's dying, Luna says, oh, I want to give you a name, because Lizard's never really earned a name. Lizard was just a thing like Lizard that she ended up being called. And Lizard chose Freedom. And they call her Freedom until she dies. And Luna cuts the vine, and then she and it withers, and it starts to die. And then she burns it all. Yeah, so clarification, she doesn't burn the leaves, she burns the roots, so it can never spread again. But I am a little okay on the vine. I guess the vine sort of possessed the dragons, and those dragons used the vine, the Breath of Evil, to do these things. So how their minds live on, I'm a little uncertain now. I'm okay with uncertainty, but I'm like, it's not quite so far that I don't like it, but I'm a little bit, Maybe if I read it again, I'll pick up on things I didn't pick up on this first read, but yeah, that was a little thing. I was like, okay, I guess their minds live on as the mind of the Breath of Evil. I can
work if you want.
We kind of skip to later when we realize that we kind of see that, oh yeah, things are happening. It's starting to, they're planting trees all over Pantala. There are dragons going back and forth between Pyre and Pantala. It's really cool. And Sundew's planting trees all over the place. So many forests sprouting up everywhere. And what they do, and we have Luna making weavings of things, and her visions of the future, having a big silk leaf kingdom or whatever, the Hive Wings, and also the Hive Wings. So we don't get much. This is what I want. I want to start a book about rebuilding after this. The Hive Wings are a mess. Some of them want Queen Moss back because they are. You can understand they're like their entire life's been like this and then suddenly upturned. Some are relieved. She thinks about how she defeated the Breath of Evil. It's like any Silkwing could have done that. Any dragon could have just chopped that leaf, that vine, and it's not just one. It doesn't have to rely on one person. She has friends with her. Her friends can help her. There are good people. There are good dragons out there that can help her, and they all have ways they can help, and to build a bright future for Pyre and Pantala. And at the end, we just have the dragons like Bumblebee, Cricket, and the whole crew just standing around and being like, yeah, the dragons from Arc 3, basically, just being like, yeah. And they're like, the future's ahead of us. We just gotta rebuild and all that. And that is the end of Book 5 of the 3rd arc, or Book 15 of All of Wings of Fire. And there's a complete arc. And I loved Book 15. One of the things about Book 15, though, is that I wish we had a little bit more character from Luna, because each book had so much, like a truckload of character from the other ones. Like Sundew, I love Sundew's book so much. And the reason why I like Book 14 so much is because of Snowfall. And this book kind of lacked a bit of, it did, but I wish we had a bit more Luna character, because we had a lot of like Luna trying to convince Lizard, or Freedom now, and we didn't get quite as much of Luna, which I would have liked to see a bit more of Luna.
Because in the beginning, it seemed like we'd have an arc of her, maybe an arc with Hive Wings and Luna being like Hive Wings, Luna. We did have a little bit of that, and also it seemed like we have a bit of an arc with her, with the other members of her crew, and being like they're capable too. They can do so many cool things. Both of the things were kind of set up, and they're kind of there. They were there in a way, but we didn't get very much of it. I think a lot of it was because we weren't with those dragons very much. We were with Lizard and Cottonmouth and Dusky for like half the book in the Abyss, and we didn't really get to interact with those other dragons. So it wasn't bad, but Luna's character arc was lacking a little bit. One thing I'd also love to see more of was the humans after the end, after the Breath of Evil is defeated. So let's see Ren and let's see Vol and Raven. Let's see them talk. Let's see them talk about this. We see the dragons and Ren a bit, but like I want to see a conversation between Vol, Raven, because we saw Raven in the prologue and Vol, but I'd love to see them chat and be like, oh, this happened. We didn't get that. Maybe in a future book, though. So who knows?
I think Book 15 was quite good. It didn't have some of the problems I had with Dragon Slayer. Dragon Slayer wasn't a bad book, but it wasn't my favorite either. And I think this is overall a really good conclusion. I have a few little things like, maybe, about it. But I think overall, Tui did a really good job with this book. I have a bunch of headcanons now about the future of Wings of Fire and Pantala. But that are my thoughts on Wings of Fire, Book 15, The Flames of Hope. I really think it's a great book. I have a few little things about it, my problems with it, etc., etc. But overall, because you can judge a book by the few problems you have, but what I like to think is, how did I feel coming out of the book? Did I feel ugh, or meh, or did I feel wow? Or usually it's, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next. In this one, it's the conclusion where I'm like, that was a really good conclusion. I think everyone's at peace. I think we've had a bit of peace now, and it's kind of like, wow, we're done. It gives a bit of we're done feeling, though there might be a 4th arc, but it gives a bit of conclusion area. It feels very, yeah, and that's Wings of Fire. And I like it. Also, Joy Yang, the cover is amazing. It is amazing. But that's all from me, and yeah, I had a ton of fun reading Flames of Hope, and yeah, your thoughts might be different from mine, but these are just my general thoughts on the Flames of Hope. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and that your day is full of wonder.